All right, so let's talk a little bit more about autonomic reflexes. So remember, somatic reflexes are automatic responses, but they are specific to the somatic division of the nervous system that controls skeletal muscle through those neuromuscular junctions. So that withdrawal reflex that we talked about when you touch something hot and you're going to pull your hand away is an example of that. On the other hand, the autonomic reflex or visceral reflex, these are still automatic responses. That's what reflexes are. But this is going to control cardiac and smooth muscle tissue as well as glands through the varicosities that are found within those systems. And these are generally mediated by something called a reflex arc within that stimulus. And so, one example of this autonomic response is going to be things like the initial release of urine. So once you get into the bathroom, that external urethral sphincter of skeletal muscle, it's going to relax. And then the internal urethral sphincter is under control of the autonomic nervous system. It is smooth muscle at the base of the bladder. So that initial response and signaling from that internal sphincter is going to be under control of the autonomic division. Increasing or decreasing heart rate and blood pressure are examples of here. Digestive system regulation, even changing pupil size, so that constriction or expansion of the pupil is also under the autonomic reflex arc. There is a similarity between the somatic and autonomic reflexes, though, and that would be the afferent branch. So the section of nervous tissue that is bringing information towards the central nervous system. All right. So sensory neurons get input from the peripheral body within cell bodies in the sensory ganglia, either from cranial nerves or dorsal nerve or dorsal root ganglions next to the spinal cord. Those are going to go into that central nervous system to initiate that reflex. So let's talk a little bit now about referred pain. And you may have heard of referred pain before. So what happens with referred pain is when there is a very, very strong visceral sensation, it can rise to the level of conscious perception. All right, so there is a lot of stuff going on inside of your body that are creating visceral sensations that you're just not consciously aware of. So your digestive system, your intestines, your stomach, they're moving, right? They are made out of smooth muscle tissue. It's still muscle tissue. It's moving, but you're not really aware that is happening, generally speaking. There are times you can be aware of it, but not always, not most of the time. These sensations, though, can be felt in very unexpected places of the body. So, when this strong visceral sensation is painful, there can be this irregular pattern of projection onto our conscious perception, and this is called referred pain. And so, depending on which organ system is affected and exactly which organ, the referred pain can project onto different areas of the body. All right, so there are certain things that can refer to the upper body. So pain in the spleen can actually refer to the left shoulder. And this is also why heart attack symptoms are generally felt down the left arm, is this referred pain. And so there is a chart that medical professionals and scientists have put together showing how this referred pain works. And this is really important within the medical field to, again, if there is an issue with the spleen, then somebody can feel pain up in their left shoulder. All right. So not all pain is going to be as perceived. If somebody comes in with pain in their left shoulder, but maybe they had an abdominal injury recently, spleen is definitely something to think about. Okay, so not all pain is originating from that area. Lung and diaphragm pain, as you can see, can refer to the lower portion of the neck and a kind of the upper portion of the shoulders and upper back. Heart can refer to a lot of different areas of the body. The appendix is going to be referred to a large abdominopelvic area, so on and so forth. So this is really important in the medical field to know these different locations of referred pain. And at this point in time, we're actually not entirely sure what causes this referred pain, but the most likely explanation at this point in time, based on what we know, is that the sensory fibers of the autonomic nervous system, of that visceral portion, actually enter at the same level of the spinal cord as the somatosensory fibers of the referred pain location. All right, so basically the fibers for the spleen of the autonomic division of the nervous system are entering the spinal cord at the same level as the somatosensory fibers from the somatic system that go to this area of the body. So that's the most widely accepted theory for why this happens right now. Based on what we know, we could be wrong. Scientists are frequently wrong, and we have to keep doing more research to prove or disprove various theories like this. All right, another big difference between the somatic and visceral or autonomic reflexes is the efferent branch of the systems. So this is the output, so signals traveling away from the central nervous system. So for a somatic reflex, that output is going to be in a lower motor neuron in that ventral horn of the spinal cord, going directly to a skeletal muscle for contraction. Whereas the output from a visceral reflex is actually a two-step pathway that start with the preganglionic fibers coming out of the lateral horn of the spinal cord, or a cranial nucleus neuron in the brainstem that goes to a ganglion, followed by a postganglionic fiber that project to a target effector. All right. That's a really fancy way of explaining this graphic. So for that autonomic efferent pathway, we are going to have that lateral horn right there innervating out to the presynaptic axon. So we have a myelinated axon here to the ganglionic neuron out here. And that's going to go out to that target effector with that varicosity out there on the axon to trigger some sort of change. Whereas the somatic efferent pathway may be originating in the same area of the spinal cord, but its pathway through that nerve is different, right? So we still have that myelinated axon, but it's just that axon. And it'll go until it reaches that skeletal muscle fiber to release at the synaptic terminal, release those neurotransmitters. All right, so the autonomic system has both short and long reflexes. So a long reflex is going to have afferent branches entering the spinal cord or brain and also involve the efferent branches. On the other hand, a short reflex is completely peripheral. This involves just the sensory neurons and their synapse with motor neurons within the autonomic ganglia, and so the cranial or central nervous system is not involved at all. And we do see short reflexes a lot within the enteric division of the nervous system. We haven't really talked about the enteric division yet, but this is exclusive to the digestive system. So our digestive system has its own subdivision of the autonomic nervous system that controls just those organs. And so these short reflexes are not going to the central nervous system at all. It is staying basically very, very localized to the enteric division and the digestive system specifically. So there are some plexuses found within the digestive tract organs that can directly influence digestive function of other parts of the digestive system. So, for example, as the stomach fills and starts to stretch, it activates some stretch receptors, and that can generate a short reflex that activates smooth muscle fibers of that stomach wall that is going to increase motility, so increase movement of the stomach to help digest the excessive amount of food that is then present in the stomach. This does not require the central nervous system to get involved because that stretch receptor directly activates a neuron in the wall of the stomach, causing the smooth muscles to contract. So here is a graphic kind of comparing the two. So long reflexes do involve the central nervous system, right? We need to go into the spinal cord, we need to go into the brain, whereas short reflexes start with our sensory receptor cell. We get that sensation, signal travels to a peripheral ganglion, and that just goes right back through to that initial organ. And we will wrap up this video here and continue in our next video talking about control of autonomic function.